Okay. Oh my goodness, that's good. Oh my God. Hi, readers. It's Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper, and welcome to my coffee recommendations of the day. Holy cow. All right, so this is an espresso roast, and I put cream and whipped cream in each of these. I have a lot of coffee mate creamers in my refrigerator at the moment because it's the season, right? So there's white chocolate peppermint, which is a Harry Potter frog something blend, I think is what it's called. And this is cauldron cake. So my daughter couldn't get the white chocolate peppermint one. These are special, just I think limited time. And then I couldn't get the cauldron cake one, so we swapped, bought each other a bottle. Oh my God, it's a toffee chocolatey delight. That has nothing to do with the books that I've read, except to say I highly recommend them. Now, the ones that I have, except for the cauldron cake in my fridge, are sugar free, but the cauldron cake doesn't come in sugar free, or she didn't find it, but that's okay. Once in a while, we just need something just wonderful. Also, ironically, I'm rewatching for the I don't know how manyth time, the Gilmore Girls. So, yeah, there's that. So let's talk about why we're here. We're here to talk about the books that I read in the month of October. There are several books I didn't read, which you probably saw in the video prior to this one, but I did what I could do, I guess. It was really a tricky month for me in many ways, but also it was a wonderful month for me in many ways. So it had its ups and downs, as everything does, right? I'm also reviewing two arcs from NetGalley today, which I have not done the written reviews yet online, but I finished two NetGalley books, which I thought was really good. So one of these was a reread for me. The other two were an author that I've already read both times, and then a couple of NetGalleys. That's my array of books that I read. So I read five books in this month for 1,547 pages, so not a lot. The moods were primarily dark and tense, followed by mysterious, inspiring, informative, and emotional and adventurous. So there you go. The pace for the most part was medium. 75% of them were medium. And that, again, is probably me. A lot of the way I felt about one book in particular on this list that I read in October is probably due to my mood by that point. But 25% were fast paced. Page number wise, 60% of them were between 300 and 499, and then 40% of them were at 300 pages. So Storygraph doesn't show this book. It says it doesn't have a format and isn't shown on this page. So that's really interesting. So let's talk about that one first, I guess, so I don't forget about it. That was your pick for me in my nonfiction read for the month or the quarter, which I've already finished because, I'm lagging on the other one. This is Genealogy Basics in 30 Minutes, a quick guide to creating a family tree, building connections with relatives, and discovering the stories of your ancestors. That's a mouthful for a book title. This is by Shannon Combs Bennett. And it says I gave this 4 stars. I wasn't sure that I did do that, actually. And now that I think about it after I put it down a bit, it's probably 3.75 or so. I enjoyed it, though. It was a little bit, at first, it felt like stuff I already kind of knew. And then it got a little bit deeper. And then it got to the point where she was recommending like how to look up certain sources and things that, you wouldn't have to purchase Ancestry and those kinds of things, which she says over and over and over again. And, I get that, but I don't know how to do that where I live now because I don't live where I lived then, but I'm sure there's got to be a way to figure that out. Also, one of the things that I really took from this that made so much sense and also was a little heartbreaking was that really the best way to start is with yourself. That makes sense, right? And really kind of tell your own story, which is important for you to carry forward for whomever wants to hear about your life. I feel kind of dumb, but I didn't even think about that. And then the other part of it is interview your family members. The challenge with that is that a lot of the family members that would have some of the history that I really want to have are no longer with us. But I'm going to reach out to my cousins. I usually see one cousin at the end of the year and his wife and daughter, and then the other one I text and can reach out to her all the time. And then I have my cousin, Melinda, who is looking over some things as well, because her grandmother was my grandfather's sibling. Yes, that's right. It's very confusing though, genealogy. So I really appreciated the way she laid it out. It was a quick read. It was easy to understand in the sense of what she was telling you. The concepts were fantastic. It was really for me just the, okay, now what kind of conversation in my head. But that is, that's on me. So the first physical book I read in the month was Carrie by Stephen King, and this was a reread for me. This is one of my favorites. It was the first Stephen King book I ever read, and I just recently acquired this copy of it, and I'm so excited to have reread it and to say that I enjoyed it, I think, just as much as I did the first time. There were a lot of things I had forgotten, but goodness knows I read this when I was, a teenager. Like I was in ninth grade maybe or something. I don't even know, but I was young. I just remember sitting in my room reading this sometimes at night and being, a little creeped out. But I'm really happy that I reread this because a different perspective of this is really good for me to have as an adult, and I wondered if I was going to enjoy it as much, and I did. I really, really did. So this one is about Carrie, clearly. And she lives in Maine, I'm sure, in a small town. And in fact, I think that the first several books were written in the same town. And she goes to school. She's a high schooler. She's been raised by very religious parents, and their religion and their beliefs were a little bit outside of what our traditional, I guess, beliefs and practices. So they were pretty, I don't know what word to describe it because I don't want to say anything negative about people's spirituality, but also they had some pretty intense, far-fetched beliefs and some ways of punishing her that I was not pleased with. She also, the mom, was punishing herself. She thought that getting pregnant meant that she had just been like sullied and that she was not any longer kind of accepted by God. So she married this guy. She got pregnant. She was not pleased and he died. And so she ended up alone parenting Carrie. Carrie goes to high school. She's very different. Kids bully her, pick on her. It's very hard to take that in. And she has some things that happen to her when she's upset, and she's able to do some things when she's upset that are frightening to other people. And so that's what this book is about. She wants a chance to be normal, and she wants to fit in, and she has an opportunity to fit in because of something that happens with another couple of kids. They, want to change the way they're behaving with her, and it doesn't go well. There's another couple of kids that are just horrid people. So this one I drew a prompt for, and this was read a book my father would have read. And indeed, I said, this is a book my father did read. But I really am glad that I got back to this because it's really, really good. All right. And then I read pretty quickly. This one was Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I have had this since December. So this is actually also a backlist, I'm excited to say. And I just hadn't gotten to it. And I actually think this might be one of my favorites by Alice Feeney. I do love Daisy Darker as well, but this one was really different than I anticipated it would be from the synopsis. So I want to be really careful not to give a whole lot of things away. I've talked about this, of course, several times. So I'll just remind you that this is about a man who's on the phone with his wife who's driving, and she says something's wrong. Somebody's on the side of the road, and she puts her phone down, and then he never hears from her again, and then she just disappears. He's an author, and he moves to this small town, like a really remote place somewhere in Scotland. And He is going to write. There's a cabin there that another writer used for years to write his novels, and he's going to go in and do this because he's behind on a book deal that his publisher has made, and he hasn't written that book. So he gets over there. He's a big kind of a drinker. He has a lot of flaws. Let's just say that. Also on this island where you can't come and go easily unless you can get on the ferry at the right time of day with the right person. On this island, there are some really unique people. And that part, that's all I'm going to say. There's just a lot of really unique characters. There's a lot of things that are happening. You don't know what's really happening till the end. And I was really surprised by the ending. I was really pleased with the way that this one went because I just wasn't expecting that. So this one I gave a 4.5, and I like I said, I think this one is really one of my favorites. Alice Feedy is not for everybody, and a lot of people don't feel the same way about the books that I've read that I really love. So just take that with a grain of salt, but I would reread that one for sure. I also flew through this one, and this is my first 5-star read for the month, and the only 5-star read for the month, and that was Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is the second or third book by her that I've read. I think it's the third. And it's a book club read for my book club besties that we're going to meet and talk about it next week. But I really loved this. I devoured it. She sets up a great, sorry, the pun is going to happen because I can't stop myself. She sets up a great atmosphere. But you really get to know these people as characters. There is a plot to this, and it's dual timeline. So you start at the beginning where there's a shuttle that's in space, going into space, and then you go back to the astronauts that are the center of this story, in particular, two women that are really predominantly featured in this particular book. And I love that. It wasn't hard to go through. In fact, it was mostly like it starts the book out with this shuttle and what's happening with the shuttle. Then it goes backwards to the development of these characters and their relationships and what happens to them. And then you go forward again to what happened to the space shuttle. And I liked that. I was afraid it was going to go back and forth and back and forth. And sometimes that's for me very trying, and I have to really pay attention. And I just really like to immerse myself in a book and get lost. And I absolutely did. Very well developed characters, very well developed emotional, and kind of like aspirational pieces of each of these people. They all had a plan for what they wanted to do when they were grown. There were a few other characters that had no plan. and there one in particular that was really annoying to me, which was the main character's sister, actually. But Joan is the main character, Joan Goodwin. She's just amazing. I mean, I just loved this book so very much. I would love to see this turn into a movie if done well. Yeah, there's another Taylor Jenkins Reid off my shelf. She works for me. It's a good author for me. And then the last one is the ARC that I got from NetGalley called The Lady on Esplanade by Karen White. This is the Royal Street series number 3. First challenge I had with this book was that I didn't know that it was book number 3. They sent it to me, I think, unsolicited. So I might not have said yes to reading it had I known, because the beginning of the book keeps setting up these characters in a way that the author thinks you need. And obviously I did kind of need it, but it was also like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like I was so confused by them already. And I was like, is that important for me to know? Is that important for me to remember? Like, I just couldn't track with it as easily. But again, I'm going to say this could be me, because the majority of this book that I finished, it was the end of the month when I was already having some real challenges about this. I finished it on the last day of October. Nola Trenholm lives in New Orleans. She's a new transplant to New Orleans, fairly new, although I think she's been in the other books before, because she talks about these other people. But nevertheless, she's wanting to go back to renovating this little cottage or this little house that she has there. And she has a guy who's helping her to do that. And they're going to, kind of redo everything and make it beautiful again. And I think they're going to flip it. The house, though, is haunted. So that's really the premise of this book is I guess the meat of it is that the house is on Esplanade, which is an avenue in New Orleans, and it's haunted. She's trying to work through that and repairing something and then trying to put people in it, I guess, or put her in it when it's going to be haunted. But she's also trying to stay away from a man who she's attracted to, but she doesn't want to be attracted to him. And there's a bunch of different relationships with other people or previous relationships with other people that were in this book. And so it's, it was just not my favorite read for sure, but I finished it. I haven't rated it with any stars at this point, and that's what's interesting is I guess I couldn't decide. Maybe that's why I didn't write the reviews. It's probably more of a 2.5 from me, rounded up to 3. But again, it could have been just me. Other people really seem to like it. Now, a lot of people haven't read it yet. It's only got 101 ratings and it's rated a 4.36. I think you would like it if you love the history of New Orleans, if you love the setting of haunted New Orleans, which I do. I've just read a lot of it, so I'm probably saturated by that, to be honest. And if you like a book that is not the first in the series, so you're kind of picking up and you're getting bits and pieces of these people, but also a new plot. It's hard for me to kind of articulate how I felt about it, so I probably need to really think this through before I write the review, because I want the review to be honest, but I also want it to be, well thought out. And I think because I finished it the last part of October and I hadn't, just been able to figure out what to say about it yet, I don't think I'm quite ready. I finished it. I'm happy. It's not that I wouldn't recommend it. It has a beautiful cover. This came out November 4th, by the way, so it's just been released as I'm filming this. And so you probably will now start to see it in bookstores and things. I'm sure I'll see it everywhere here because we often get a lot of books that were published in or about New Orleans in our bookstores here because we're so close. But yeah, Karen White, book 3. Would I go back to book 1? I don't know. I guess it would depend on my mood and maybe what the synopsis of book 1 is. But again, it was well written. It's not that. I think, again, it was pretty much me. So I want to make sure I don't taint the review from the me that was like, just because of circumstances and exhaustion, and not share the me that would have maybe been much more excited had I read this at a different time. So there you go. Is that crazy enough? I think so. I just really am glad that October was as good as it was, because there for a while I thought, oh gosh, I think sometimes for me, when I read 3 books that are absolutely, riveting in a row, it's kind of hard to follow that up, right? I think it's just the fact that I had some really good reads right out the gate, and then I was, with this book 3. Also, sometimes, and this isn't the author's fault, I know what she's doing. Sometimes books set in New Orleans are so over the top New Orleans that I just don't like. It's just like, you don't have to go there. New Orleans is great just the way it is. You don't have to elevate it to that level of, I don't know, sarcasm or of predictability. But again, this is just me. Clearly, as I say it out loud, it's just me. So thanks for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video to some degree. I'm kind of trying to get back up in the groove, so that's a tricky thing for me as well when I've had some time off and when we've had all these celebrations of all the, spooky Halloween-y things. It was just a great month in that regard. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know what you read in the month of October if you would like. I would love to see that. And I'm always curious about what you think about these books in terms of if you would read them or if you've read them, what your thoughts were about them. I Always appreciate your comments. And if you want to add an emoji, I'm going to let you choose whatever emoji reminds you of anything that we talked about today. It could be quite robust, so you should choose the emoji that works the best for you. And I will be back soon with some additional content. I can't wait to share some more stuff with you. This month is going to be, I think, really exciting. Thanks again, and as always, happy reading. Bye.